Hi, this is Joseph. It's Monday, 9/9/19, 2019. Gonna try to put it all together today and just take something at random here where it's a SPY today. So I'm gonna point out a few things that are on my chart. The yellow zone is the opening 1 minute range, which is often what I refer to as stasis or the big gravity on a range day, which is 70–80% of the time. Price likes to return there quite a bit, maybe even close there. On a big order flow agenda or trend day, 20–30% of the time, your price is going to move away from that. It may come back to it, but it tends to more often than not come back to the secondary gravity, which is the Chartmojo neutral and wound cloud, which is bordered by 50% of the developing range where the gold dots are, or the gray crosses, which is VWAP. And so let's look back a little bit first. It was a gap up day. That's overnight. And so there was the last unwound cloud, which I'll bring forward, and you'll see why that's important later. Previous days tend to have memory and stay within the market's memory and repeat things. So this down here is a pop one, of course, Moody. And when price is in this red zone, that's actually a sell trigger zone if you're getting other signals. The blue, when price enters the blue zone, and this indicator is set to color these candles at the moment, it's either an exit or a aggressive counter move entrance, depending on how you're reading the other factors. This down here is an ADX. You tend to want to look at that when it's climbing and see when it starts backing off for the trend to end. This is a Connors RSI. It's a composite of 3 different oscillating momentum indicators. It's very sensitive. I really like it. I really like it when it, I like to see waves in it, urges, I like to call them. And I like to see when it's hanging out below 25 and above 75. That tends to pull. So as you can see, if you're looking at pre-market and you've got everything going on extended, these are all reds. This is all sell. This is a Shanzi Bollinger Band 2 optimized signal here, which I like to use. I like to use this combo, although I don't really trade off of them, but I do like them to confirm with what I'm seeing. If I'm seeing a short, I like to see all these things lining up. If I'm looking to go long, I like to see 1, 2, 3, or 4 more of these things giving me that signal as well to confirm. But anyway, you can see it was a sell right off the bat. Here's the opening 1 minute range. Here's the neutral cloud, which starts going down as price goes down. The gold dots are going half of the range. So it's putting on a move, comes back up to VWAP, and it's still building in ADX. You did see a little pop in Connors there. Just a little burst over is not going to get me excited, but if it starts staying up there or hanging out up there, that's a different story. But when this is occurring, what do you do? Whenever you're in a trend, you start. There's one dynamic in here you're looking for. About 9:45 position holders. If it's an initial counter move, start thinking about getting neutral by back to the neutral cloud, or somewhere between VWAP and 50% of range by 10:30, and that's what that red line there is. And I usually put this ellipse in early on that 10:30 line so I can kind of see how things are going in relationship to it. So I'm always looking for this counter initial trend, initial trend's down, counter initial trend back to the neutral cloud, somewhere within the 950 to 1010 window. So there's 950 and there's 1010. So it does do that, put that on. But what I'm also doing in there is I'm looking for a couple different things to set that up. Be building in the trend. I'd be laying in a trend line. Then I'd be going up to indicators, volume profile, fixed range, and I'd be laying that in there and looking for that to break with a trend line break. If I didn't see anything happening, I'd also be running it from the second break. I'd be running, often I'm running one for the whole thing. I've got a day's one running as well, but then I've also got, from the next break, you can see when it pops up there, that's like a new urge in there. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in there. It's a little 5-wave push in there. But anyway, I'm looking for the trend line, and then I'm looking for point of control to break. And I'm also looking for ADX to pull back a little bit. And I don't know if you can see that right there. If I made it a little bigger, you can see ADX is stepping back there. This is turning up. That's going up. Lots of confluence in there telling me that this down move, along with the tendency to want to go back up at that time, that it's going to happen. And I did trade pretty well. I was hitting 79.4% today on my scalps and NQ and ES, mostly short. I think it was like 3/4 short, 1/4 long. I do trade a lot, and I don't worry about the trade fees or the because I kind of capped that. I know my max is usually around 20% of whatever I'm getting, so I'm usually doing better than that on brokerage fees and per trade fees, etc. Commissions. So I'm not really looking at those unless they start getting above and over in a session above 25%. Then something's not quite right. But anyway, I'm not like fixated on that. I'm fixated on the signals. So right about there would be a good time to go long. And you can see this kicks in. This is the Shanzi. That would be an aggressive cover. I like to do the Shanzi with this pop one and working together. So if they're both in the red, that's a sell. If the Shanzi pops up, that's a cover. Aggressive cover, maybe not so aggressive, depending on the situation. But I'm looking for this. I'm looking for this tendency anyway. So I'm already out. So the second this starts flattening out and this starts dropping, that means people are buying into that. They're slipping out. People know this tendency, so these shorts start sliding out into the selling, and everybody that doesn't know about it gets hurt because the second they see this turning around, they're going to market order up, and you're going to get a bigger candle upward. It's actually a green candle, but it's just still in the red zone here, so it's colored red. But you're going to be I like to be in front of that move. So because I know the tendency, I know when they're going to start sliding out. So I'm looking for that, and I'm looking for confirmation in any of these things. But actually, I'll lay in a buy tier when that starts occurring. And I don't know exactly how far it's going to go into it, but it's going to hit the front ones, maybe hit the middle, maybe even go to the back. If it's a super strong trend, it's going to keep going, but it's not a high probability. The probability or the tendency is to come back to here more often than not, and to be in this, everything was right in I think SPY was in there too, right in that ellipse, which is right in the neutral cloud at 10:30. That's what I'm looking for 70-80% of the time, and I'm trying to capitalize on it. When it happens, when it doesn't happen, I'm trying to capitalize on that. But I'm looking for a neutral track back to that zone. If it violates, takes off, starts dropping, well, then that means the big order flow is there's just too much in its overwhelming tendency, and you'll see it react. You'll see the market react when that happens. Anyway, comes back up, that's nice. Then I'm looking to see what the 10:30 guys do. And if I kind of have it looking more at it like this at the time. So I'm sort of, I tell you what, generally that when that occurs at mid-range, to me, that's like acting like a pennant. So I'm doing something like this. Then I'm looking for an apex, and I'll generally box it in as well. And I'll start looking for how the boxes work. They're going to probe up, down. If they don't have an agenda right away, they're going to probe up and down. They probe down there, they probed up there, and then somewhere in there they realized that there was strong support and weak resistance, so they started moving up. So it doesn't look like a lot, but if you could get this here is the positioning move to neutral, which is often a great move. It's often wave one of a bigger wave, low day to high day, but not in today's setup because it was going to go lower. But I'm looking to catch this neutral, the counter initial trend positioning trade to neutral, and then I'm looking to catch the session one boys come in, they assess this, put on a move. I'm attempting to catch whatever they're going to do. So they moved up, and I think in other things were much stronger. I think IWM and Dow and other things were coming up here into the stasis, opening 1 minute range gravity. But anyway, this is a move. Then I'm looking for, they tend to exit 11 to 11:15. So there's 11, and there's 11:15 there. So you can see they put on a little move. if you have a lot of shares, you can make money in a little move like that in NQ or ES. But it doesn't look like much here, but it is if it's a tendency and you capitalize on it. Then they sell or they exit 11 to 11.15. And then it goes into the lunch crowd. So I stay away from that whole scene until, because it's a low probability zone. And but let's crank this down and see. So I tend to go away and do errands and come back, although they did sell and there was a move. They came back in. They weren't done. So I came back in, and then I start looking about 12:45. I'm looking for all these position holders that are in here, even though they're mostly lunchers and retail, to want to try to urge neutral by 1:15. So I'm looking for this downward. If you look at the ADX, I'm looking for the ADX to back off, looking for everything to reverse. And how I would do that on the chart is I would draw a trend line. Once again, go into indicators, fixed range volume profile, put something on that leg, and then I'd keep moving this until it got closer to price, whatever it takes to do that. Usually that's the last move I'm looking at. But so, and I'm looking also at the daily one, but I'm looking for TL to break and point of control to break and defend on one side or the other, that point of control line. But the first thing I'm really looking for is you'll generally see something in the counters because it's so sensitive. I'm also looking for ADX to back off, which tells you that this is weakening. Remember, I'm looking for this to weaken. I'm not looking at any particular levels or anything. I'm just looking for that to weaken around 12:45. There's 12:44. So these people that know that tendency, they're already covering into this last bit of selling here. This whole thing is them covering, and people are starting to realize, oh, hey, something's happening. They're covering. Then I'm looking for the inverted right shoulder, and that was right there. And you could see it in all kinds of things. Boom, boom, boom. Then I'm looking for the track to neutral, toward neutral. If there's strong tendency, even in a down or trend day. So yeah, there it went. It was going along. This was a pretty nice 20 or 30 point rise in Q, which was more than several scalps worth. But then it started to level out here. And this topped out. This kind of topped out, started coming down this way and hanging out below 25, which was, and then I don't know, I think when I was trading it, I started boxing it in. But anyway, I got the tendency, and then I could see that weakening and falling out of the track. When that happens, you know something's up. There's some bigger forces at work than tendencies, and some sell orders that are still wanting to sell. But, you could also run fibs on this, which I think I did. And everybody's doing this. It's not just me. They're not just doing this on dailies or 15-minute or weekly charts. They're doing it on 1-minute charts. They're doing it on tick charts. They're doing it on any chart with a run on it, because these tendencies tend to occur fractally on any time zone. So anyway, the was approximately 50% retrace of the break. If you were going from, let's see, 10:30, it'd be right there. But anyway, I'll tend to run those on a few things and just see what's happening. So comes back up, and then essentially you're having an apex down lower at that point. It's not a neutral apex. It's a little bit more bearish. So then I start looking in there, box it in, look for the break, and it broke downward. All kinds of things were telling you that this was coming down, broke down, got into the aggressive sell and sell trigger zone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then it started rambling around. But once again, that was a 115 move. It's scalpable in ES and in Q. Then he starts just kind of rambling around and ranging, and at that point, I'm not too excited about it, but I would start wedging it in, looking for something to occur. Anyway, in the end, it comes back up, and where does it end up with? And this is a nice move back to neutral, by the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could be running the legs in there, all the point of controls, all that stuff, trend lines, all those things would be triggering just like they were initially. But it comes back up right at the very end to the neutral cloud and also the confluence of the neutral cloud from yesterday at the end of the day. That's very important. Those things, point of control, VWAP, neutral clouds, if it hangs out there for a lot of time during the day, it tends to want to pull back there the next day unless there's some screaming catalyst. So anyway, on this day, you basically had a down day with some tendency in it. Closes at 50% of the range, which, fibs are fine, but 50% pumps Fibonacci's. You're looking for confluences. Let's see if I throw in, let me take it off this extended for a second, because I actually flipping back and forth during the day on those, because I can put on different indicators depending on whether it's extended or not. Just looking for this and just looking for various confluences. There's a few right there. There was the VWAP 50% range, the neutral cloud from yesterday, and this is the first half hour support, initial balance. So there's some confluences. There wasn't the daily point of control in there, but I'm betting if you were running some other ones, let's say from maybe the break right there, let's see what happens. Yeah, then you've got your point of control and the confluence in there also. So I was looking for a confluence, and there's the confluence. Price moves from confluence to confluence in waves and patterns. They're just tweaked. They have all the same wave force and pattern force that you would imagine if there were perfect patterns and waves. They're just tweaked in today's market because people recognize everything so much quicker and ahead of time, and they can predict how things are going to morph, so they tend to push waves and patterns and step on them. So they're there. They're tweaked, but if you just look for the force of a Head and Shoulders, you'll see it in a tweaked version. Might be a bullish version, might be a bearish version, but there's going to be the same decision points, the same consolidations, the same tendencies. They're just tweaked bullish or bearish. Same thing with waves. So anyway, I don't know. That's a few things, just randomly speaking. I'm looking for the 10:15, 10:30. Or urge up at neutral, 115, some kind of track towards neutral. Ahead of that, looking for the positioning trades to neutral, looking for the breakouts from those apexes. Also looking for the waves and point of control, trend line movements, etc., etc. Anyway, it's been a while since I did one of these, so it's kind of rambly. But just wanted to throw that out.